no, thanks everybody for showing up tonight on this windy, blustery Wednesday. Thank you, Rob, for coming in and giving us good information. I did write down a little bit about your bio, so I will read
shoot.
it.
Okay.
I feel like most of us know me because you've been to our houses, which is great. But no, Rob is with Wisdom and Associates, and he's a licensed inspector who performs building inspections, energy audits, and teaches classes to contractors. He also holds multiple residential and commercial inspection licenses, and is a certified instructor and speaker for the state of Alaska, the EPA, and other various and multiple organizations. So I will let you take it away. If you want to say anything else about yourself, please do.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. All right. I'll back up just a bit here. So the talk this evening is going to be about Alaska's energy programs. I'm going to go over everything that's ongoing and coming up in the near term that I think might be relevant to your guys' cause, and hopefully we can find some solutions for you guys. So anyway, I'm Robert Moss, and just like David said, do a lot of inspections, energy audits. Some of you guys know me from being in your houses. Done a lot of energy audits, maybe a couple thousand over the years, a couple hundred commercial audits. So I got a pretty good feel for, hopefully, what's relevant to our situation in Alaska. For some reason, this is automatically playing. All right, hopefully that'll stop. So today I'm going to go over the state residential programs that are in effect right now, which there's Alaska Housing Finance Corporation and a weatherization assistance program. I'm going to go over the current federal residential programs, both for new construction homes that are being built and for existing construction where you're looking at upgrade or adding on to a house. And then I'm also going to talk about what's coming up like in the very near term. There's a big pot of money that's been given to all the states, and right now it's being decided how that's going to be divvied up. Well, actually, it's already been divvied up, but we're trying to decide how to distribute it in the best way possible. And so I've got some information on that. I just attended a 2-day conference in Anchorage, the Energy Efficiency Now, where the big topic was these federal and upcoming programs. So it's good timing. I've got some good information about what's going to be happening. And then I'm also going to talk about at the end kind of low-cost solutions, how we can do things cost-effectively, what an audit is good for versus what you can do without an audit, kind of the benefits and limitations of that. There's trade-offs there, but we can talk about kind of, what is available funding-wise, how far the dollar can go, what you can do without actually having to spend money on an audit, and the pros and cons of that. Real quick, what is an energy rating or an energy audit, as they call it in other parts of the country? So any of the state and federal programs I talked to you guys about are going to be based on some type of national standard rating. It's going to rate efficiency of the home on a scale. And they have to do this for documenting compliance with the programs and where the money's going and what energy improvements are being captured. And there's a lot of other things an energy audit can do, like estimate utility costs and savings, which is really beneficial because it tells us where our dollars are going and what our return on investment is, which is probably the biggest benefit of the audit. Although having said that, just working here for a couple decades, I've got a pretty good feel for what's cost effective or not, just based on doing a number of audits. But there's a lot of valuable information you can gain from a rating that will help you make good decisions and maximize your dollar output. So there are basically 2 different kinds of ratings I'm going to cover today. There's a new construction rating, which I'm not going to spend much time on because I don't think that's the focus of what you guys are doing. But new homes that meet certain standards are eligible for cash rebates, tax incentives, all kinds of good things. And then there's the as-is rating, which is for every other home that's not new, and any home or dwelling can fit in there. Yes, ma'am.
What do you consider new? Is it like within 5 years or within the same year?
Good question. Has been occupied less than a year. So that's kind of the statute definition. Good question, though. But yeah, anything else, can be rated, even, manufactured homes, mobile homes, single-family residential dwellings. So state-funded programs. The two main ones that are currently active right now are through the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, which is the largest entity that's dealing with these at the state level. They have their home energy rating program. And that's essentially a program where the client or the customer is actively participating and they're paying some of the costs at least out of pocket. And then there's the Weatherization Assistance Program, which is essentially a no-cost program for people that participate. There are benefits to having a new home rated if you reach certain thresholds. The benefit right now is that they'll reduce your long-term mortgage interest rate, which is an incentive. For a while there, they were giving out actual cash rebates when oil prices were very high, 10 years ago or so, but that is not the case anymore. But it's a good incentive. Currently, Alaska Housing has their energy efficiency interest rate reduction program, where if you're financing the home through them, and they're the biggest lender in the state, they can knock up to 0.75% off your long-term mortgage. And in order to incentivize that, they have low-cost loans available to encourage that. Realistically, though, what I see in the field is this gets used very little. It's kind of cumbersome, and there's a lot of steps, and you got to have your financing through them. So maybe not super relevant to our group, but it is available, and it fits the needs of some clientele. The Weatherization Assistance Program, this is the no-cost program. You do have to be income qualified, but it is free. How much you can get out of this program varies by budgeting year over year. I think right now the number I heard in Anchorage last week was approximately $8,000 per dwelling, but there are wait times and qualification, and they have income limits for federal, anywhere from $36,000 to, if you had a whole house full of people, maybe $126,000. The state level funding is slightly more generous. I think on the Kenai Peninsula Borough, this number bumps up to $141,000. So it catches a fairly wide swath, and it is a good program for those people that just can't afford the out-of-pocket. So if you're looking at that clientele that can't pay and then get a rebate, have that processed, this might be a better track for them because everything is done for them, and it is a good program. Federally funded programs, this is basically all what's called Energy Star. Energy Star gives the money to the states, and that money goes to the Alaska Energy Authority, which then goes to Alaska Housing Finance. So they're the ones that are kind of distributing the funds and running that program, or trying to get some of those programs started even. For new construction homes, there's a $2,500 per home tax credit for builders, which again isn't super relevant to our needs here, but just wanted to let you know it is out there. And it goes to the builder. It's not really a benefit to the client other than they get a home that meets a certain threshold, which I think is valuable, but it's not a direct benefit. Here's the program that's really interesting to me, and the one that they spent a lot of time on at this conference I was at. There are two different arms of this program. One is energy efficiency tax credits that goes to existing homes, up to $3,200 per year through 2032. So you could take advantage of this program every year for the next 8 years and get $3,200 tax credit per year. So you're talking, $20,000 or more. They have money for renewables like heat pumps and windows, doors, skylights, insulation. Just about everything can be fit in there. So this is great for folks that are paying federal income tax. They'll receive a credit. This is the program that is taking off right now. They're trying to get Alaska's program to harmonize with the federal program, and so there's software bugs and things they're working on. I'm hearing maybe this summer or by Q4 of this year, it'll be integrated and ready to roll out. So that is upcoming. For both new and existing homes, there's an ongoing tax credit for clean energy upgrades, geothermal, wind, solar, battery, 30% of your cost. gets deducted from your income tax. So that also is a great thing. Here's the ones I'm really excited about for you guys, though, just to let you know what's out there and then what's coming up. This home efficiency rebate program that they're rolling out, so they've given Alaska $75 million, and half of that is going to weatherization, and half of that is going to this program. And so what they're working on now is how are we going to spend this money in the best way possible to get the most benefit, and that's why it's taking so long. All the states got this money, but maybe only 3 or 4 have actually implemented it by now. You know, the wheels of bureaucracy turn slowly, but it is coming. It's a guaranteed thing. $2,000 to $4,000 for showing energy savings, depending on how much savings you do. If you can show 20% savings through an energy audit, it's $2,000. 35% gets $4,000. Those are very doable numbers from my experience working in the previous rebate program. Those are numbers that can be shown pretty effectively. If your household income is under 80% of the local median, that doubles. So you're talking like $4,000 to $8,000. So really helping those lower income folks that need the most benefit. So that is the first program that's going to roll out. And the second one is a home electrification and appliance rebate program where they're going to provide discounts to all sorts of electrical upgrades. In Alaska, this is kind of dubious because our electrical rates are so high that, you know, how much effort do we want to be putting into some of these things like electric stoves and whatnot. But regardless, the money is there and there are good upgrades available. It is going to be capped at 150% median income, which is, you know, a little broader swath than the efficiency rebate program. They are still working out the details. Alaska Housing was asking the raters at the meeting kind of what role we should take and, you know, how this is actually going to work. But again, it's targeted for, you know, becoming available right here, kind of when you guys are looking at your action plan, it seems. So that seems like it's going to fit really well together with this big pool of money that we've been handed. So, audits versus no audits. You know, I actually talked to a lot of raters up there just to see what they were charging, and I know what we're charging around here. An energy audit costs $500 to $750, but the good thing about an audit is, you know, it gives you dollars and cents, what kind of money, what kind of payback you're going to see, and generally it ranks your improvement options. So you might get a list of 10 things you can do to the house, and here's how cost effective they are, and it does provide some professional guidance. You'll get a list that looks like this, and you can do some very low cost stuff with a you know, very quick payback and great savings. You know, installing a new thermostat, you know, might save you $155 a year, but it only costs $100, so less than a 1-year payback. You can quantify your results, which is really helpful. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, when you do an audit on somebody's house and they get, you know, the issue of air exchanges.
Yes.
If your house is so tight, can you get money to help you with like an air-to-air heat exchanger?
That is a great question, and the answer is yes. They will rebate or reimburse something as simple as a bathroom fan on a timer just to provide air exchange, all the way up to the full air-to-air heat exchanger. And you bring up a great point, which actually is the next thing I want to talk about with you guys, doing it without an audit. So the pro of skipping the audit is there are a lot of low-cost options that people can do, the air sealing, the thermostats, adding insulation, to things that don't require professionals like a boiler replacement or something extensive. And that $500 to $750 can do a lot of good to a house. And if you're working with a limited budget, you know, that's something to consider. The downside is, though, you know, not having that professional guidance of actually where the money is best spent, and then the issue that you were talking about, you can actually seal up a house so much that it becomes dangerous to people. So that is the downside of, you know, not spending that money on the audit. There's a couple of things I've seen in houses that were very dangerous situations when they over-tightened a house. Instead of all the heat and combustion gases and carbon dioxide going up the flue, the house is so tight, It actually comes into the house. So you can over tighten a house. And I've seen people do great things in the rebate programs. They seal up the house, save a lot of money, and they do it with elbow grease and $500 worth of great stuff foam and caulking. But you can also go so far, they end up causing these problems where we've got backdrafting, carbon monoxide issues. So that's an important component of the audit, is the safety check at the end to make sure we haven't made something dangerous happen, caused a mold problem, anything like that.
Do you have recommendations for people to check out for safety issues? I just built a studio and it is very tight.
They actually, I think it was 2013, they adopted this new standard where we have to do a safety check now. So we check every appliance to make sure there's no CO, carbon monoxide and stuff. So as they did recognize, you guys might remember, we had this huge windfall of oil profits, and they started the home energy rebate program. And they said, anybody that's got a house, you can get $10,000 for air sealing it. And then we started just going like crazy, and they said, uh-oh, we just made a problem because people are sealing up their houses so much. We got to make sure that they're not causing a dangerous situation. So there's definitely a protocol for that. Improvement tier list. So the way I look at how to best spend the money on a house, whether you have an audit or not, things that you can do. The first one usually, if your heating system is capable, is a programmable thermostat that you can set to automatically adjust the temperature in the building without your intervention. So at night, it goes from 70 to 65. During the day when you're at work, it cools off. I don't know why it keeps doing that, but that will get you a lot of bang for your buck. The second best thing you can do is the air sealing, because you can spend a few $100s on that and really reduce the heat loss. The downside being you can make the darn house too tight. So there's a ventilation or fresh air component that goes along with that that's important.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Emily, you go first. I just had a question regarding the thermostat. So, we have in-floor heating or on the first floor, and I was told that if we adjust it too much back and forth, like it takes days before it actually adjusts to that temperature.
Yes.
And so, like, that wouldn't make sense, right, to use a programmable thermostat on.
You're definitely right.
Okay.
Yeah, if you've got a significant thermal mass that takes hours to heat up and cool off, negligible benefit there. All the other systems, it works very well, but yeah, I would not bother on a radiant in-floor heat system. Good point. Air sealing's next best. 3 and 4 are putting insulation in the house, and I love putting insulation in because it's no maintenance. You know, you can put in a fancy new boiler, but eventually it's going to wear out. You put in good insulation, it's there forever. And insulation down low, in our climate, the ground temperature is so cold that you get a benefit even in the summer. We got a 40-degree ground temp. If you insulate your crawl space or your slab, you'll get savings, and it's easy to do. I mean, pretty much anybody can lay out foam boards or fiberglass bats, and you get a really quick payoff there, and you noticeably warmer floors, which is also nice. Next best is insulation up high, and this is, again, relatively simple, low cost, easy to do. You know, when we ran through that rebate program, homeowners were doing all 4 of these things, but especially these 2 by themselves. And so if you don't have to pay a contractor to blow insulation in, you get twice as much insulation for the same amount of money. So the attic's another great place to look. Once you get past here, the cost savings typically go down because now you're having to hire professionals to do the work. So your heating and hot water, there may be a need to do it anyway because it's at the end of its life, but the upfront cost is big enough that most rebate programs aren't going to cover a substantial percentage of that cost, and there's a lot of complication and maintenance that goes along with it. So unless it's a real clear-cut case or maybe the boiler's about to blow up, generally that's further down the list. And then doors and windows, they're just so expensive per square foot unless there's some other reason to replace them where you got single panes. Your money is definitely better spent somewhere else in the building. You know, there may be aesthetic reasons to do those things, or they're just, you know, they fill up with ice in the winter. But otherwise, you know, a double pane window versus a triple pane window is just an incremental improvement for a lot of costs. So generally they don't recommend those until last. So that was my very kind of quick overview of everything that's happening in the state and kind of where to look. So what questions do you guys have for me?
A question about when you talk about air sealing, can you talk a little bit more about what that means?
Air sealing is great because you know you can go to Home Depot and buy a case of caulking and foam and weather stripping and get a lot done. There's a lot of places to look for air sealing, and that's where a little bit of experience comes in handy because you know where to find those places that need the air sealing. And then using the right products for the application, you know, foam for big gaps, caulking for small gaps, weather stripping where you see daylight. But in terms of bang for your buck, really great. There's a cool thing that you can get, smartphone attachments. They make infrared cameras now that are only a couple $100.
Yeah.
And like, even if you just got one and pass it around, it's great because you can see where the cold and the air loss is. If you just go into a house and turn on all the exhaust fans for 5 minutes when it's 0 degrees, you can see every air leak in the house right then. And then you've got directed air sealing. You're spending your money and time, you know, fixing the $10 leaks and not the 10-cent leaks.
Yeah.
So there's definitely ways you can be really effective for really low cost.
One little trick that folks can do too is, like you said, you turn on the bathroom fan, the
Yeah.
kitchen exhaust fan, everything, and then get you like an incense stick, the thing that smokes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And literally run it
Just
around
watch
your
it.
door, run it by your electric outlet, run it around all the windows, and it'll blow back into the house, and that gives you a little clue on where your bad leaks are.
I was wondering, I'm guessing that you can't do both. So in the rebate versus the tax credit, can you combine them or do you have to do them separately?
They are two separate programs, is my understanding now, so you could combine them.
Okay,
So if you did, there's nothing they've indicated that says you can only do one or the other.
nice.
So maybe you could get those federal tax rebates and, you know, if you're income qualified, take care of that state program too.
And then also I have, and this is just like the issue that I have with my house, like it's on fuel oil and it is also in floor heat. Is there any programs that have to do with like converting from oil to something else?
There's nothing like what most folks want to do is convert to natural gas, which there's no help for. But this heat pump thing, which is catching on, is going to be where that's headed. So they want you to convert to an electric heat pump. And the experience in Alaska with heat pumps is they're getting better. Kodiak, Seward, Southeast.
I've got one in my new studio. It's pretty great.
Is it working?
Until it gets to -10, then it, like, suddenly you cannot tell that it's really on.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's great.
It's still kind of a part load solution, you know, good for shoulder seasons. And the efficiency they're getting like 3 or 4 to 1. It offsets that electrical cost, and so it's way better than oil. And I don't think it'll be long before they get heat pumps that will work, you know, down to -20 and become a real, you could use it for everything.
You know, one thing to remember, just like Rob was saying, all those things on the top of the list are much less expensive and easier to do. People frequently want to like get the most efficient boiler in the world and, you know, get rid of their oil or whatever. But it turns out if you reduce your heat loss in the house, it doesn't matter if you have an inefficient boiler because it just, you need way less heat. So that's something to think about. If you attack all those things on top first, the efficiency of the boiler is actually very unimportant in the whole scheme of things.
Right. With my heat pump, I bet it would work, but I didn't skirt the building, so I think that would make a world of difference next year once I do that.
Yeah, there's kind of a pyramid of priority, and it goes with renewables too. It's first things first is reduce your load, and then you can downsize everything, and it just you know, less initial cost and less cost over the long term. So yeah, that's a very good point. You want to attack your heat loss first, and then go to renewables and that sort of thing.
Help myself. I just want to take a couple notes.
Okay. Did that answer your question about the heat? Well, you know, conversion.
So yeah, so there will be like a heat pump conversion type program.
They're
Not yet,
pushing the
but-
heat pumps.
Yeah, but like to come, because I know that there was something like that in Juneau. But that didn't extend to the rest of the state because I had been looking into it because I was looking into heat pumps.
HEA.
HEA's got a
Yeah.
$500.
Yeah, they've got like a
I got
like
$500 off my bill.
yeah, like something.
Yes, sir.
If we're starting from square one on this type of stuff, what level of, and we're hoping to be reimbursed or receive tax credits for some of these purchases, what level of documentation do we need to have for things that we're buying or acquiring? I imagine that you've been through some of this too with your recent construction project. So like, for example, with your heat pump that you purchased, what level of, so there's a whole application where you go through HEA.
It was super, they just showed up and were like, yep, you put it in.
Okay.
There was a whole application I looked at, I was like, oh man, I have to like get a builder to sign off on it, but I did it myself, and it was really pretty straightforward to put in.
So for example, like with AHFC, the Home Efficiency Rebate Program, we're gonna, I don't know, purchase a bunch of materials for air sealing. What, do we just save the receipts? Do we need to take pictures before and after? What's the, I imagine I would find out when I look into it, but I'm just curious. What the
Just
process is like.
based on the last go around when they did that, there is some extensive documentation they do on it, receipts of everything you purchased, and then the auditor verifies that stuff's installed. And then if you pay any contractors, they have to be licensed and show an invoice. In some cases, I saw where they requested canceled checks for materials to make sure that people weren't just buying it and they're returning it and getting the rebate. So my understanding with the federal stuff is most of that burden's going to be on the auditor, and they're trying to make it less cumbersome for the folks that are doing it. But what it will actually look like when they roll it out, I'm not sure. And then all the tax credit stuff is talk to your accountant about that.
So if we were to go through this without an auditor, then like, is there something missing in that step that, or do we have to have documentation from an auditor first if we're gonna request
Yes.
or tax credits for these things that we're describing?
For anything that they're putting on, yeah, they want that rating report and all that documentation.
That's a real benefit of having an auditor as like the first step in this process too, is that you can apply for all these different programs that we're talking about.
I think it's really a question of like budget and goals. If the budget can afford the audit, then it's probably worth doing. But if the budget can't for whatever reason, I don't know what your guys' plans would be, but yeah, if you're at a level of $1,000 per home or something to do the materials, then you wouldn't bother documenting and you wouldn't get the audit, but you could still get a lot done for that lower cost.
Gotcha.
Rob, have you done any numbers on, out of all the audits you've done, of the people that followed your advice?
Yeah, so
Got any percentages?
I got a few I remember off the cuff, mostly from that home energy rebate program, which is really well documented. I think the average home rebate was $5,300, and then the average output was somewhere around 7,000 or 8,000. But this program, like that one, is very flexible, and so you can only spend as much as you get back, or if it's worthwhile, you can spend more and just receive a partial rebate. It'll be the same kind of thing. It'll be up to you or the consumer how to spend. The difference there is like weatherization is the consumer has no choice. They have a budget and they're going to do what they want, and maybe you get what you wanted and maybe not, but that's for not paying out of pocket. That's the sacrifice.
But just to recap, in the previous rebate program, previous go around, people would spend on average $7,000 or $8,000.
That's what I think. I could actually get real numbers.
Get about $5,000 back in rebates.
Yeah.
Okay.
The rebate tier started at 4,000, went up to 10. Most people made it to that next step of like 5,500, real close to that.
But what helps the folks that, a young family that both of them are making minimum wage or working 2 jobs each, they can't afford 7 to 10 grand.
No, that's
How are
where
we helping them?
weatherization.
Okay, the weatherization program.
Yeah, that's and then the new one they're rolling out, the less than 80% median, they'll get $4,000 or $8,000. So it helps a little, but they're still an out-of-pocket expense.
Can you talk a little, because that was the one that you were most excited about,
Yeah.
right? The Alaska Housing Finance Corporation Residential Energy Rebate Program.
Yeah.
And that's, that's coming up and will be available.
They're saying they're going to roll it out in the last quarter of this year.
Okay.
They've got the money. They're negotiating with Alaska Energy Authority on, it's like bureaucracy.
So if like I was interested in it, and I bet a handful of people will be interested in.
Oh yeah, I'll be
pursuing
interested in
that.
it probably.
So what would be the steps that the homeowner would take to?
They're probably going to have, they've already got all the infrastructure set up to do a program like this because they did all that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so there'll be an online portal where you can sign up and they will vet your application and then put you on a waiting list and then distribute you to one of their authorized raters in the state to make it happen.
Yeah.
So it'll be, I think, fairly streamlined because they've already had a lot of practice and already made all the mistakes. But it'd just be a simple online sign up. You may have to supply a tax return on this one to verify your income to get the full benefit. But
And then basically with that one, it's to get a rating first, or to do whatever you want first.
you definitely don't do anything until you get the rating.
Right, so you have to get the rating. It's not paid for, but you can get a rebate.
They are going to subsidize the rating, they've told
Okay.
me.
That's awesome.
They were actually asking us what we thought, because we did it 2 different ways last time. Does the public want the rating paid for, or do we want the public to pay the raters and then get reimbursed? They're just trying to make it easy to use. So there's a good chance that you won't pay out of pocket for the rating at all.
Yeah.
Or there's also a chance it'll be like before, a large portion will be reimbursed to you.
So it's almost like we shouldn't do any interventions.
You want your house as bad as possible to get the most benefit, yeah.
Benefit.
If you guys can wait a year
Yeah.
to do this stuff, I think you'll be able to get a lot of credit for it. Yeah, Mitch?
If,
Just hang blankets up.
10 years ago, you did an assessment, where would you fall into if you did? And thank you, by the way, for my forced.
Oh, you already went through the program.
How does that apply to the new?
Well, everybody starts from scratch.
Okay.
So it's going to be open to everybody. The way they're setting it up, where it's going to be a modeled reduction in your utility costs, 20 to 35% are the kind of the benchmarks. If you've already been through the program, it's going to be harder to show that big improvement. But if you've got a really bad house, that's great, because you'll be able to spend the least amount of money to get the most benefit, and you'll easily move up that scale and show that improvement. So we like that.
So I have a question. What if you have a bad house that you might remodel or rebuild? You'd have to remodel it prior to this or during this?
Definitely don't do anything until.
Do anything. What about rebuilding?
So there is a Energy Star thing for gutting a house, and they only talked about it briefly because it's such a small segment, but there is a program to do a gut remodel and take advantage of some of these funds. So if you're planning a big remodel, you can certainly roll in one or more of these programs into that.
Rob?
Yes.
When you look at the cost of an audit, if you do somebody's house that's really old and bad and it's leaking bad, and let's say you give it a rating of one-star rating, what kind of timeline does the cost of the audit include going back after all the work's done, or is that another cost?
That in the past, that's been another cost because there's been a dropout rate. You get a certain number of folks that don't finish the program, so they decided to charge it separately, so you're not paying the whole upfront cost if you don't follow through. And that generally that second appointment is less cost because most of the work's done. You're just verifying the improvements. And I would anticipate they'll model it in the same way because it seemed to work.
You do a second blower door test?
Yes, second blower door test, but not a new as-built.
Okay.
That's where the savings comes in. Unless you build an addition on it or something.
Well, so with this program, though, I mean, a homeowner would still require an audit beforehand.
For any of the programs,
So it seems like the most useful thing to do before this program rolls out would be to get people set up with the audited home information so that they're ready to proceed with the hands-on part when that's available.
Or does that need to wait as well?
I think you should wait there as well because they're integrating Alaska's software with the national software. And I would hate to do any kind of work and then have to redo it because of some bug they found. I mean, they've been working on this for a year. So I guess I would counsel patience until maybe after the summer. And I think things will become much more clear. And, you know, what your role could be most effectively would probably kind of emerge from that.
The 500 to 750 for an audit. Did you say, is that reimbursable for certain?
That's either going to be partially reimbursable,
Okay.
fully reimbursable, or they're just going to pay for it.
Okay.
I wish it were more straightforward, but I think it's fine that it isn't.
It's just
This-
nebulous right now.
This is honestly helping a ton though, because I think mapping out how we best spend this year to really, it's like PowerSmart is a project that we want to finish in a year or two, and we hope to have it be as beneficial as possible. But we want to be realistic. So I think like figuring out when we do what this is helping us.
Well, I can keep you guys in the loop as things develop. It's no problem for me to email you and say, here's what's happening, here's what's coming down the pike. Because Alaska Housing has the money, and they literally don't have everything figured out yet. So.
Right. For the rest of these, like I think that perhaps like with the weatherization assistance program, a lot of that is just like really helping clarify how you apply for it, and I think maybe having a goal of helping 5 to 10 households.
Yeah,
through
this
that
is
process
active. You guys could do it right now.
Could be a thing that we do right now. So advocacy about what's available. So this one is available. The federal tax credits, the three others are available. But you were kind of saying, you were kind of poo-pooing on the federal tax credits, right?
Yeah, so the feeling from the Raiders is that builder credit is probably no one's going to do it.
Okay, and that's the 4 or 5L tax credits for home bedlet.
And then the renewables, 30%, you don't need an audit for that. If you just get a renewable, it's just turn that into the IRS. That's all you got to do.
And that's for this one.
Yes,
This one.
for renewables.
Does that have to be?
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
So for with renewables, for example, if you are setting up a solar grid, or if you are getting set up with solar power, like does that have to be connected to the electrical system in your home, or can it be its own separate standalone system, like for an outbuilding?
So they want it to be on your primary residence. They don't want it to be on rentals, although there's a separate program for that that's a little lower scale, and they don't want it going to commercial buildings. It's really focused on primary residence.
So it has to be on your property, on your primary residence, but it doesn't have to be connected to the same grid as
No, I don't think so.
Gotcha. That makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I'm curious though, if we wait to do the audit, like how many people on the peninsula can theoretically do a home efficiency audit? Like, are you the only person that can do that, or?
No,
like,
there's, I'm definitely not the only person. There's 2 other active raters certified right now, and they actually just trained a group. So there's going to be a couple more coming online. They're trying to gear up for this, because that was a big problem last time is, here's $200 million, but there's only 30 people, and we need to add 100 raters. But we're building the plane while we fly it. And so there's going to be more available. Yeah, Mitch?
Follow up to Ben's question, so that federal tax credits, I've been kind of poking at it on the internet. So that's an annual credit?
Yeah, you can take advantage of that through 2032 every year.
Every year, so you could do a heat pump 1 year, then you could do a solar hot water on the following year. So that's every.
Like they showed an example, a 3-year run out where for the first year you use it to get an audit. The second year you do a heat pump. The third year you do windows, and you just keep scooping it up.
Okay, so that's it. Yeah,
You can't carry over, but every year it restarts.
Right.
What are there other ways that we can set ourselves up for success? Not just with being able to jump on this program when it becomes available, but really, like I was just thinking, this is such a huge education piece. So to know before you get an official audit to be able to do this in your home, so you kind of get educated about what your home needs might be something that we do.
So like I'm spitballing, but yeah, like if you guys did your own houses or 5 houses and learned what it takes, you could really help other folks with targeting their efforts.
Yeah.
and getting that more bang for the buck with some really simple tools like incense sticks or a $200 infrared camera. It won't apply to weatherization, they're doing their own thing, but this tax credit, not the renewables tax credit, but the other one, the $3,200 one, where you can do insulation, doors, windows, that's where you could do, I think, a lot of good and save that audit money and do, at that level.
So what is the next greatest thing coming along? Because nobody wants to get the best thing today and only to find out that a year and a half from now we have these solid state batteries that are coming in.
Yeah.
So what's, in your opinion, as being an expert, what's the next greatest thing coming down the road?
I'm glad you asked, because the rumblings I'm hearing at these conferences is the cold climate heat pump. There's all the, people are developing them in Canada, Japan. They're not hitting the market yet, and there's going to be a, how do you get them worked on and serviced issue. But that's the huge push is heat pumps, and then the heat pumps that are going to be good for Alaska. I don't know when they'll actually see, a good adoption here, but that is going to be the thing. It might be 2 years or 5 years, but that's the way everything's being pushed, and they're making great advances with the cold weather performance. Like you even saw some of that.
Yeah. Quick question, I don't know. A lot of this stuff is like things that we can do our own as long as we can figure out Google. But like there's not very many. There's a supply demand or like issue with like stuff and people that can do the work. So when this program